Hi, I'm Sibabatso. I'm part of the Morebo team, and today I'll be chatting to Mphiwa, who's an executive financial advisor. Mphiwa, tell me a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, hi, Sbubs. Thanks for the question. I'm an executive financial advisor, and as an executive financial advisor, I look after clients in terms of their wealth creation, preserving their wealth. I lead a team that helps all spheres and all levels of clients. So from your high net worth clients to the young professionals starting out.
And in your opinion, what is Morebo's future?
I think Morebo's future is really centered around a strong team of young, talented, well-intentioned people who are really keen to help the client win. And by help the client win, I think it's important that we understand that the ultimate goal for us is to build a legacy. And if you're building a legacy as a person, you want somebody who's going to walk the journey with you and help you to answer the difficult questions, be alongside you when things get tough, but also have the depth of insight and knowledge that's really going to drive your future, that's really going to help you get to that place of generational wealth, that place of leaving a significant legacy. So no matter where you start as a person, we are here as Morebo to help you get to that place that that'll set you up for a good legacy.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
And what are you looking forward to in 2025?
I love energy. I love the energy space. And when I say energy, I'm talking about alternative energy solutions. So I'm really keeping a keen eye on alternative energy solutions, what's happening in the marketplace, what is the global outlook on energy, what is the South African outlook on energy. I mean, we've just gone back to load shedding.
Yep.
And but the key thing is sustainably, what is the energy solution? What is the energy mix for our country? And who should be investing in that energy mix? And that's something that I'm taking to our clientele as well, to say, how do we get the South African energy mix right? How do we get the continental energy mix right? And how do you as our clients get involved and get invested on that journey? So that's really exciting for me. The second exciting thing for me is agri. Food security is a big issue for our continent. And so if we can get our clients to understand the imperatives around investing in that food security sector, we're really putting them in a good place to go on a big growth trajectory, a big growth journey. So whether it's agriculture, whether it's agri-processing, and the entire value chain of the food security sector is a really exciting space for me. So those are two exciting things. And then thirdly, very importantly for me, something that's really close to my heart, something that brought me into the sector is education. Is educating the man on the street, if I can put it that way, about wealth. Educating our clients about why it's important to understand the fundamentals of money, the fundamentals of wealth, and the building blocks, and therefore how to put those in their quiver as they go on this journey of life.
All right, and what developments are you keeping an eye on in 2025?
Like I said, just briefly, the energy space is a huge area for me, huge area of interest. So I'm keeping a keen eye on there. Agriculture, but also, and I say when I look at food security, is also what is the, what is kind of government's attention? What is private sector's attention? And what are we, just as a society, what is our attention towards areas like food security and energy? So it's keeping a close eye, a finger on the pulse on what is society saying and what are the key drivers of this economy saying about those two areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's great. And what financial advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, a lot. Do we have all day? Okay, let me start with, very simply, what is your vision? The first question I've asked myself is, what is your vision for your life? And I think that's really important, because if you have a true North Star, a vision that will impact not only yourself, but others around you, and hopefully society at large, I I think that's a good place to start, is to see where you want to end up, and then work back to say, right, how am I going to get there? What are the measurable things I'm going to do to get there? And how am I going to know that I've arrived at each of those milestones? So I think for me to start there, what is your vision, Mphiwa?
Yeah.
And secondly is then to say, from a financial point of view, very importantly, is from your first salary, start to have and put in place savings goals and action them. Don't just put the plans in place, but action those savings goals. Make active saving a part of your philosophy. The saying is your success in investments is not timing the market, but it's time in the market. So the earlier you start to invest and save, the more time you have in the market, the more opportunity you have for growth, the more opportunity you have for legacy savings, legacy investments.
What does a financial advisor do, and why is their role so important in today's fast-changing world?
Okay, so I think to answer that, I'll use my younger self
Okay.
as an example. So a financial advisor is somebody who's going to stand alongside you and ask you those questions. Mphiwa, what is your plan for the future? Where do you see yourself in 10 years, 20 years? Where do you see yourself at retirement? Those kinds of questions asked early on in life is really what a financial advisor should do. Somebody who's going to be there and guide you and ask you the questions that you probably wouldn't even know to ask. So as a young person, are you investing? Where are you investing? What are your plans for the future? Those kinds of questions weren't in the realm of the younger me. And I've seen from a lot of my younger clients, those kinds of questions aren't in their realm. And as you grow as a financial advisor, as you grow with your clientele, is to now start asking the deeper questions about what does that legacy that you want actually look like? What are the driving factors, the levers, financial levers that are going to get you to that place of success? Because the financial advisor role is to understand what are those levers to pull. Not just what is insurance or what is an investment, but to understand how does that impact your planning? How does that impact your money management? How does that impact the risk management around your life? You know, there's many risks around us, whether it's life and limb, whether it's property or whatever the case is. What are those risks, and how do your life's decisions impact those risks? What are the investments that you're going to make? Or how do you grow wealth? What are the investments in the marketplace? I spoke about energy earlier.
Yeah.
It could be sectoral. It could be things like ETFs. It could be retail investments. Those things are important to know, and to know at a really deep level. But now, as a client to a financial advisor, or let me say as a financial advisor, what you want to do is to then guide your clients to say, what fits best for you? This is your situation, this is your scenario, this is your journey. What fits for you? Because not everything is a fit for everyone. There's a lot of noise in the marketplace about you should get this, you should get this, you should get this.
Yes, absolutely.
However, your financial advisor is there to sit alongside you and know you and understand you and say to you, this is who you are, this is your journey, and therefore this is how to fit all of these puzzle pieces together for your success.
So with the rise of AI, what sets human advisors apart from AI?
One very important word for me, empathy. Empathy is to be able to sit next to you and listen to you and understand your situation. As financial advisors, that is our key role, is to have empathy and to understand the person that we're dealing with. Having understood that person that we're dealing with, we're then better able to advise and to incorporate AI. I don't think AI is a competitor to financial advice. I think AI is an enabler of financial advice. I think AI helps us to do things a lot quicker, and it helps us to really dive deeper into certain situations or to certain thought processes. But the key thing as a financial advisor is the empathy that you have for the client that you're dealing with.
What are the most common financial mistakes people make, and how can they avoid them?
How much time do you have? No, I joke. Common financial mistakes is, I think of debt as maybe a starting point. I think a lot of the time we allow consumption or the consumerist nature of our lives to take over. And being a consumer inevitably yields or results in us acquiring probably more debt than what we should acquire. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make is the acquisition of debt, acquisition of consumption debt. So that's a big one. Is also making the distinction between good and bad debt. I think no debt is not necessarily the answer for everybody, but consumer debt is a big mistake versus what could be productive debt. So things like, bonds, access bonds, things like business debt, and so on and so forth. So that's one mistake, perhaps.
Yeah.
The other mistake is hiding things from your financial advisor. So we often get that where we're working with a client and we have the best intention, the best plan in place, and voila, the client hasn't told us something truly material to the decision that needs to be made.
Yeah.
So another mistake I think that people make out in the marketplace is hiding and shielding things and taking advice possibly from people who may be well-intentioned but don't have the skill set or the knowledge set to give that kind of advice. So it's all good to take advice, but with a pinch of salt, and then to check it. Check it with your financial advisor. Check that advice with somebody who's credible, knowledgeable, and also who's in your corner, who's part of your kind of ambit of trusted advisors to help you to navigate the water. So I'll leave it to that.
Yeah.
for the time being. Those are the two big ones for me.
All right. How do you tailor financial advice to meet the unique needs of each client?
There's what we call the financial planning journey or the financial planning process, the wealth journey. It all depends on who you are, where you've worked, and what your experience is. So the starting point is really to listen to your client, to understand who that client is, where they are in their life stages, and what it is that they want to achieve. And in order to do that, I mean, there's a series of diagnostics that we've created at Morebo that help us to really dive deeper and scratch beneath the surface in terms of who the client really is and what their goals really are. We're then able to say to the client, right, given where you are and where you want to get to, here's a kind of a gap analysis or a needs analysis. Typically in the market it's called a financial needs analysis. I term it a wealth needs analysis because of the outlook of the clients that I have and the work that I do. So here's a wealth needs analysis. This is going to tell us how we get, or what the gap is, how big the gap is from where we are now to where you want to get to. And then we start to implement and we say, right, this is our implementation journey. I like to use the word journey. I believe that it's not a sprint, it's not a one-day job.
Yeah.
It's not a here's a product and off you go, but it's a journey where we walk alongside you for years and years and years. And so in this journey, here's how we're going to phase things in. I think what's also important for people is to remember that because it's a journey, you hit certain milestones at certain stages. So you're not going to get everything. And I think it's to manage that expectation of our clients. And that's probably the biggest part of helping or working with clients in this process, is to manage the client's expectations.
Why is succession planning crucial for small business owners?
If you call yourself a business person, your business needs to outlive you. And I think that's a primary, or let's say that's a baseline principle for running a business, right? So a lot of us get into business thinking that we're in business, but the moment we step out of that business, everything stops. So succession planning is important because it then says you've got systems, processes in place, you've got kind of analytics in place, you've got the things in place that are going to help the business run without you. And then you bring alongside that the person or the people that are going to lead that business, that are going to lead those processes, that are going to be the inputs to those systems. And so succession planning is important because you can't do everything. That's for starters. But secondly, you need a team alongside you, and you also need to have a team of leaders that are going to take over the business, because we don't get into business to go and die in the business. We get into business for it to be a legacy.
Yeah.
And so if it's going to be a legacy, it means it must outlive you. And so that's why, for me, succession planning is truly important for small businesses.
That leads me to my next question.
Yes.
When should they start with the succession planning process?
Oh, right from the beginning. Succession planning should start at the business planning stage of your business. When you're planning your business, when you're writing that business plan, you've got all the best intentions, you're so excited about getting going, you know your product, you know what you want to do. Succession planning falls right in with that, because you need to know in what you're doing, at what stages are you going to start handing over certain areas of responsibility, handing over certain key leadership and decision-making roles and aspects of your business, so that your business can grow. Business growth it cannot happen, or let me say it's stifled, when everything points to a single person. I think business growth is accelerated when there are systems, levers, decision-making processes, and people equipped to make those decisions across the business. And that makes the business agile. It makes the business able to then quickly adjust to changes, but quickly make decisions and move forward and take opportunities for growth.
What key financial strategies should business owners consider to ensure a smooth transition to a new owner or the next generation in line to take over?
Really important question there, Babs. A couple of things. A buy and sell agreement is key for business owners to ensure that succession can happen smoothly when or if one or more of the owners of that business are unable to work anymore, whether they pass away, whether they are medically boarded and unable to work. So that's one. Key man policy, where you look at who are your key strategic parts or members of your business who would be really difficult or expensive to replace. So key man policy then becomes another one, because what these two policies do, they bring cash flow into the business. So that's two. And then another would be a sinking fund, or a fund that your business contributes towards, that then enables it to have money when it needs it over a long period of time, whether it's to replace assets or whether it's to finance a transition, an acquisition, or anything of that nature.
What is estate planning, and why is it important for everyone and not just the wealthy?
Estate planning, I like to define as what happens after you die, but not just that. What happens after the policies have paid out? What happens after all the monies, all the planning is in place? Then what happens? So that for me is estate planning. And what that essentially is there a directive of what your descendants should do with the money that they are left with, or with the assets they're left with? So a will, is there a will in place? Is there a trust that can help direct and guard and safeguard some of those assets for, let's say, your younger descendants, your children, your grandchildren, and so on, who may not be able to fend for themselves, but need to continue living after you're gone?
How does estate planning differ for business owners versus individuals?
In my experience, there are very slight differences between individuals and business owners. So the business owner's got to consider a few factors, like who's going to take over from them in the business. How are they going to maintain and continue their income generating activities and so on after they're gone. So the way in which you'd plan for that might be slightly different in terms of the structures that you'd put in place for the business owner, as opposed to the individual. The individual might be somebody who's a professional, somebody who's worked a job for 30, 40 years. They have their stream of income, and after their retirement and so on, after their life, they have a single stream of income, and that money is then put into a pot and allows them to continue to earn ongoing.
When is the best time to start retirement planning?
Very good question. Very important question, Babs. Retirement planning should start when you start working. In my experience, in my exposure, in my own personal experience, retirement planning should start when you start working, because again, it's not about timing the market, it's about how much time you spend in the market. So the longer you've saved, or the longer you've put money away towards retirement, the more time you give that money to grow and to compound, because the factors we have in our favor are the power of compound interest and time.
How can individuals determine how much they need to retire comfortably?
There's a simple exercise that we sometimes do as financial advisors, and you say, let's look at what you're earning, what do you desire to earn come the time of your retirement, and let's aim to replace that. If we can replace that amount that you're earning by the time you come to your retirement age, whether that's 60 or 65, then we're in a good place to understand that's how much you need. And then we'll work out, right, what does that mean for you starting out in your career? How much do you now need to save month by month, year by year to get to that goal?
Okay. And what are the biggest risks to retirement savings?
Also, a very important question. Biggest risk to retirement savings is accessing your retirement savings before retirement. A lot of us fall into the trap of wanting to access our pension or provident funds before we retire. So for example, when we resign from a job and we're moving from one job to another, we want to access those funds and make use of them for other needs other than retirement. So for us, that's probably the biggest risk to retirement savings.
How do different investment options fit into a solid retirement plan?
Okay, so really importantly, in your retirement plan, there's what we call diversification. And we want to diversify your retirement or your investment options in order to manage the risk of your retirement plan. We don't want everything, we don't want that whole adage of all your eggs in one basket. We want to spread the risk across different investment options in order to allow your retirement savings to grow, but also to be protected.
Oh, okay. What role does inflation play in retirement planning, and how can individuals prepare for it?
So inflation is a part of our reality. And what it essentially means is that as time goes, the value of the things we buy increases, or the cost of the things we buy increases, but the value of our money needs to increase at a corresponding rate. So we need to be aware of that so that we can plan for that and make sure we know when to escalate or to increase our savings amounts to make sure that it keeps in line with the growth in the value or the cost of living.
All right. Thanks so much for your time, Mphiwa, and your valuable advice. And everyone else, I'll see you soon with my next guest.